Yeah, I'm filming at a different angle this time because, well, I want to be different.
Let's get it. Yeah.
Greetings, comrades. This is AMD Caleb back with another retro game haul video, and I've been meaning to do this early in the week because I went to one of my local game stores on Sunday, got a few games, but I also ordered a few Super NES games on eBay, and they were kind of sporadic throughout the middle of the week, so they all managed to come in, and I wanted to wait till those showed up to do this game haul video. And also, I got a few more packages that I ordered from Amazon recently, and that's actually going to be a separate video because there's quite a bit to talk about there. But for now, we're going to do the retro game haul video, and I got quite a small collection here. And for the Super Nintendo games, pretty much all of them were games I played before, and a few of the games I've actually owned for the Super Nintendo before. And got my first Genesis game too, so I might as well get this out of the way. And yeah, if you played like Genesis compilation games like on the 360 or the Switch and stuff like that, you might immediately recognize this game, Vector Man. That's right, it still has a little rough shape, but I tried it out and it works perfectly. But yeah, it's a pretty challenging, like side-scrolling platformer game, and played it a few times in the past. Yeah, it is hard. Even on the easy difficulty, it's pretty difficult. And yeah, this came out pretty late in the Genesis life cycles, like around 1995 when this came out. By that time, the Sega Saturn was about to come out. We don't know how that turned out. And yeah, there's also a sequel to Vector Man, which I think is a bit harder to come by because it was also released pretty late in the Sega Genesis lifespan. Yeah. So maybe if I now get that go. But yeah, my first ever Genesis, not just for the Retron consoles, but this is my first Genesis game ever buying, because we never had a Sega Genesis. We had a Super Nintendo, and we actually rented a Sega Genesis way back in the day. Remember back in Hastings where you could like rent consoles and stuff? That was pretty much my only taste of the Genesis at the time, and we rented two games, Mortal Kombat 2 and Echo the Dolphin. Definitely nice, especially Mortal Kombat 2, but some might argue that the Super Nintendo version is better because it looks better and sounds better, stuff like that, but hey, that's not this video here. So that's my lone Genesis game. Now let's go for the Super NES, actually the NES games, because I got four of them, and let's get this one out of the way. This one I have played in the past, Dr. Mario. And funny thing, when I first got this cartridge, at first I thought it wasn't working because I had a bunch of copies of this, but I did get the pins on a little rubber alcohol swab, and it works fine. Just a little bit of dirt buildup on there, so yeah, I guess the Retron 5, the Retron 3, they need clean cartridges, otherwise it won't work. But yeah, Dr. Mario, very legendary puzzle game for the NES, and it was re-released on the Super NES with Tetris and Dr. Mario, which yeah, that, I think I mentioned it before, that game actually works on the Retron 3, but for some reason not the Retron 5, because it'll dump the ROM, but it won't start the game, which is kind of weird. But it works, and every bit as fun as I remembered. But yeah, Dr. Mario, definitely a classic. Rest of the games, you know, some I consider classic, but I don't know, because honestly, these games I've never heard of before until I saw videos on YouTube and played a little bit myself, and they're decent for what they are. First game is Demon Sword. Pretty interesting, like a platformer game, which plays similarly to Legend of Kage, which coincidentally both of these games were made by Taito. And you can like jump really high and like throw shurikens and use your sword to fight enemies and stuff. And as you progress the game, your sword gets bigger and has these little prongs on it. So you start out, it's just like a little dagger, but as you progress further through the game, it'll look like this. You got Conan here. Totally not Conan. There is a Conan game on NES, but I heard it's terrible. Actually, it is terrible. Just watch AVGN covering Schwarzenegger games. So, this game. Another game here, Pinbot. They had a lot of copies of this on the game stores. Dare Pinbot to the Pinball Challenge. This is a pinball game. Definitely looks better than the Nintendo pinball game. And played a little bit. Takes a little getting used to with the controls and stuff, but I mean, there's not too much of the controls. Just like 2 buttons you press with the paddles. And you can also tilt the board and stuff, which I don't think you could do that in the NES or Nintendo pinball, which is kind of weird. Nice little game, made by Rare, which I booted up as made by Rare. The same people brought us Donkey Kong Country, GoldenEye, and Perfect Dark, among other games. And Battletoads. They also use Battletoads, which, yeah, I don't plan on getting that because it doesn't work on clone consoles, at least not very well. It'll work on the Retron 5, but I don't know. This may be controversial. I'm not a big Battletoads person. Hey, that's just me. Now, this game is pretty interesting. Never heard of it, but I played a little bit, and it's an interesting game, I'm not going to lie. Metal Mech, Man and Machine. So I played it a little bit. Basically, you pilot this robot, and you can, like, it's basically a sort of a platformer game. You can, like, move around and shoot, like, random enemies and stuff in your mech, and you also get out of your mech and actually explore buildings and stuff. At least from what I played, it's a pretty interesting game. Got it for $8, and I say it was a worthy purchase. You need to play a little bit more to get the hang of it, because the way the mech moves, like, you can't turn the other direction until it like stops its momentum. Then you can go the other way. So it takes a little getting used to. But it's an interesting game for what it's worth. Now for the Super Nintendo games, and I have quite a few here. Now, most of these games I have owned on the Super Nintendo before. I remember renting this game quite a bit, and I forgot the name of it when I first played it. Then I saw videos and I saw the cover. Oh, I recognize it now. Here it is. Super Conflict. It's basically a strategy game where you like control like an army, and you have separate units, and you have to like move them in like a hex grid. And what's interesting is that the damage your units do, as well as the damage your enemies do to you, it varies wildly depending on what terrain they're in. Like if they're in the city or if like on the mountains and stuff, they might have like a territorial advantage and stuff like that. Pretty hard game, but it has some decent music for the time. Made by Vic Tokai. Yeah, very interesting game. There's quite a few things I plan on getting for the Super Nintendo. Most of them I have played before. Now this game, oh my god, the memories of this game. This is one of the few games we actually owned for the Super Nintendo, and had a lot of fun memories of this game, and it's still fun to this day. Firepower 2000. Very cool shooter. What's cool about this is that you can choose between the helicopter or the Jeep, and they both play very differently. They use the same weapons and stuff, but what's interesting, the Jeep, it can only move in like 4 directions, and you have a rotating turret, so you can attack enemies from your side or behind you or whatnot. And you have to like leap over obstacles, and you have to traverse bridges and stuff in order to progress, otherwise you get crushed and die. Whereas with a helicopter, yeah, it pretty much plays like a regular shooter. You can fly anywhere, and you can only shoot forward though, so yeah, they have each of their own strengths and weaknesses, so it's pretty cool. Very awesome soundtrack. Sometimes I hum the soundtrack when I'm like at work and stuff. It's such a memorable game for me. Made by Sunsoft. They made a lot of cool games back in the day. I don't know if they're still in business. Sunsoft's a name you don't hear of that much these days. I know there are now like carts for the Evercade, which have some of their classic games. I long for the day they release a Evercade cart that has this game. That'd be really cool. But I have this cart now, so that's awesome. Yeah, a little yellowed, but you know, it shows the age of these games. He's like more than 30 years old, so yeah. But works like a charm. So happy to have this. Another game I'm glad to have. This is another game we owned for the Super Nintendo. Another pretty cool shooter. Pretty interesting for the time too. Strike Gunner STG. Oh yeah, this is one of the very few games my mother played. And it's a pretty cool game. It's basically a vertical shooter. And And what's cool about it is that you have a selection of weapons to choose from, like everything from like cluster missiles to big lasers to auto-aiming machine guns and stuff like that. And what's interesting, once you use that weapon, you can't use it again for the rest of the game. But fortunately, there's a large selection of weapons to choose from. And it's a pretty short game, not too hard from what I remembered, but it was fun. I definitely had some nice memories for this game. Another game I had a lot of memories for. This just came in today, actually. Oh my god, this has sentimental value for me. Desert Strike, Return to the Gulf. And yeah, the last two games are from the same series, but this game, I remember playing it a lot. And it's fitting because this came around the time the Gulf War happened, and yeah, my dad was stationed in Saudi Arabia in the Gulf War, so this definitely has some sentimental value for me for that reason. But basically, the Strike games, there are 3 in the Super Nintendo and Genesis, and there are a few on the PlayStation. 3D graphics and whatnot. You basically pilot a helicopter, and you like fly around the map and like do different objectives, like destroy like power stations or destroy this number of enemies and stuff like that. And what's interesting, you can rescue POWs with a winch, and you take them back to your base of operations to rescue them. That's one of several objectives you can do throughout the game. And what's interesting, you have limited ammo, but you can like pick up ammo again with the winch. And another interesting thing, you can select a co-pilot, which kind of alters the gameplay a little bit. Some use a winch a little faster, some are better with weapons, some are more balanced and stuff like that. Some of them you have to find as you progress through the game, so that's really cool. Made by EA before they became Evil. Yeah, but anyway, awesome game. It has sentimental value to me. One of the reasons I got it. And now let's move on to the second game. Now, oddly, I played this game and the third game coming up a lot. Didn't play so much of this game because we never owned it. That's probably why. Jungle Strike. This is the second game in the series. You pilot a Super Comanche as opposed to the Apache, or Apache amalgamation, because last I checked, the Apache has a different rotor than what's shown in the game, but I digress. But yeah, this is interesting because you, as the name suggests, you play through like jungle battlegrounds instead of just a desert. But the first mission actually takes place in Washington, D.C. But I know there's like jungle environments and stuff. I didn't play too much of it, but you can tell just by the name what kind of environments you're going to deal in. Yeah, this came out in 95, yeah. I was but a dumb 7-year-old kid at the time. Now, this game also played quite a bit, and this is the last of the Super Nintendo games, and another game kind of have quite a bit of value too. Urban Strike, the third of the Strike games for the Super NES and Genesis. And yeah, as the name suggests, you find urban environments like Las Vegas, I think San Francisco. So like what's interesting, there are also on-foot missions, right? After you progress to a certain level, you go on an on-foot mission where you play as your pilot and you can actually like go around and shoot bad guys and stuff like that. But it's mostly the helicopter missions where it's at. But yeah, awesome game. Definitely have quite a bit of sentimental value for it. Then let's set up the thumbnail here. My Super Nintendo games here. My Nintendo games here. And my lone Genesis game here. Yeah. But yeah, this collection is going to steadily grow over the years. I'll tell you that. Again, I'm mainly focused on games that I either have sentimental value for, games I've played in the past, or games that I never played before and want to give a try, and that kind of interests me.
Suck it up, life's tough, we know that. Someone's got better stuff and can throw cash. Tell them I don't give a fuck, make my own path. I don't need no handouts, I'm my own man. Gotta get it, I'll get it and fast, yeah. Got a girl and she'll get it, she bad, yeah. Man, I only get down with the best, I'ma leave the complaints with the rest,